Well, good morning from Alderman Farms. We're doing this video this morning in collaboration with the Homesteaders of America garden tour. And this morning, I'm out here working on my overgrown box that has gotten away from me. It was my lettuce and dill box. And I'm probably going to go right back in here with lettuce and dill because we have our irrigation, if you can see right here, laid out for smaller plants or plants that are closer together. And so I'm going to most likely put some more dill and more lettuce in here because I have cucumbers growing. And I'm going to show you those in a minute. I was going to show you this too. We picked these plants up at our feed store, and I have kale, broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage. So I don't have a ton of plants, but I have enough for us to eat on, and once the kale gets big, it'll be plenty enough kale for us to eat. And I'm going to put that over here in this other box. All right, this is the box that I'll put most of these plants in. If I have too many plants for this box, I will put it over in the lettuce box. Or in this box, I have a few little extra spaces that I'll put it. I have to do some harvesting today. This is our holy basil, and it has done really well. I think I'm preferring the other kind of basil though, but it is pretty. It has gotten nice and tall, and then you can see it's going to seed now. This is my bird pepper. I have to harvest them today. And if you remember this bed, this basil was actually way over here. I pulled quite a few up because it was shading out my parsley. And since I did that, the parsley's coming back. You see some of it still looks kind of bad, but it's really starting to grow up a lot better than it was doing. I also have to harvest our banana peppers. Tommy did stake up a lot of my peppers for me, because my peppers and my eggplant, because they were drooping over so bad because they're so heavy with peppers. So I'm going to harvest some of these peppers. I don't always let my banana peppers get red, but it will be really pretty in the jar. We have still been picking some eggplant, and my eggplant, I believe on the last video, it was way over in the aisle, and so we've got it staked up. And I've got, here's one little small eggplant right here coming up. And y'all, this is my, I said that was bird pepper. That's sweet pickle pepper, the little pepper. This is my bird pepper. It hasn't even put blooms on, but I've put it back here in this box in hopes that we can maybe even build a canopy over it. I've not been able to harvest any of these because they haven't gotten ripe before it freezes. So I'm hoping to be able to pick some peppers. They're a little bitty small pepper. This is the trellis that we had our melons on during the hot summer. And now I have my cucumbers planted down here. I have like a row of cucumbers, and they're kind of far away from the trellis because I wanted them next to where the water comes out of our drip tape. So they'll climb up here, and it's not a ton of cucumbers, but it ought to be plenty of cucumbers for us to be able to make some pickles and to eat on and everything. I've still been picking my bell pepper. You can see they're still growing. I have quite a few in here that are coming along. I have had some that started turning red, and it's because they had a rotten spot. So I think I had a critter maybe trying to eat them. But I have been harvesting bell pepper, so I'm very pleased with that. This is the okra that we're still picking. I'm still not pleased with the amount of okra I'm getting. I'm not sure if it's because it's not outside, that it's under the high tunnel, or that I need to add a little fertilizer to it. I really think it's that I need to fertilize it a little more. But I have still been able to pick some. I don't know if you can see the drip tape in the aisle. This is one thing that Tommy's been doing for me. He has been replacing all of my drip tape because, you know, you have to do that every few years because it does get dry rotted in the sun, and different animals can chew holes, and sometimes weed eaters like to get a hold of it too. So anyway, so Tommy's been replacing my drip tape for me. And I wanted to show you this. Oh, another thing, You see how this okra is just, that okra does that. It'll just fall over. And it is everywhere, all bent over and everything. And I'm going to show you what we, there was a fix we did on that. But anyway, before we go to that, I want to show you my old green beans. This is my old green bean row. I planted these back in March. And they need to be pulled up. We will use this in part of our compost. But you see, it's still making beans, and it's still making some flowers on here. But the beans are very tough and very stringy, and so I picked them a couple of times, and we've eaten them. But I'm not picking them anymore. I just really need to get this done for compost. Well, this is our new green bean row. This row over here is about 50 feet. This row is about 30 feet. And so any day it's going to start putting out blooms. Probably, and it may be a week or two before it actually starts blooming. But we should have green beans in 2 to 4 weeks at least. But one thing I have to do every day, just about, is come out here and take these tops and wrap them around. Because they grow up and they will fall down. So I wrap them around my top. And of course this row is not near as high as the other row. So I'm going to have more of this to do. But you just loop it around and kind of train it where it won't grow up and then fall down. I'm very pleased with the green onions. They actually started coming up. I didn't get them dug. And so I had some that I had planted out. I think that I showed them in my first video. These are my Papa's green onions. And so I'm trying to get a lot of seeds, and so I have them planted out here. And this is about, let's see, 5, 10, 15, this is about 20 feet of green onions double planted. And so next year I will have even more seed onions. These are multiplying onions. We call them just green onions, but they multiply. So you plant one bulb and that multiplies into 3, 4, 5 bulbs sometimes. And so then you have more seed. And it's been a few years ago at the feed store, they had told me that they were having a shortage of green onion starts, that they would buy them. And so I may actually sell some of these at the to our feed store to sell to the public next year, or maybe the next year. I want to make sure I have plenty of seed because I don't want to lose my Papa's green onions. Okay, I told you last time my goal was to plant peas in the garden. And I did get 2 rows planted. This is a row of black crowder peas, and they're doing really well. I haven't cut my tomato strings yet, as you can see them hanging. They have nothing to do with the peas. They're just there still. But anyway, I think we're just a few weeks away from the peas starting to bloom now. And so I'm very pleased with how they're doing here in the high tunnel. Didn't know how they would do. I've never planted summer peas in the high tunnel. This is the sage that I had, I actually moved it last winter to this spot because I wanted it to be away from the edge. I had it planted on the edge. And so I moved it here. I've harvested it, and it grew big. I harvested a lot out of it, and it's growing more that I could harvest even more. And this is some green onions I just had here last year. I just had some extra seeds and I forgot about them, so they're coming up here. So I'm going to probably dig them up and move them somewhere else. On this row, I did plant some peas between the tomato plants. As you see, I've cleaned up my tomato plants on this row, but I planted my peas and they've not come up very good. So that's one thing I've got to do, is redo the peas. But y'all, I am so pleased with cleaning the tomatoes up. I had dead limbs going all the way up my tomatoes, and I've looped it over the top wire up there that actually holds those little strings that I tie up the tomatoes with. And I haven't secured them up there. I've just looped them over, and I've already picked one tomato, and looking around, I'm going to be able to pick more tomatoes. on this tomato plant, it had a sucker coming up out of the bottom down here. And I left the sucker on here, and I pinned it up to the wire, to the string, and I'm getting blooms on here now. And so this will be a new tomato plant also. I have a few more down here that I've also done that too, where the tops weren't pretty, so I cut the tops off and kept the bottom as a new plant. And here's one of those tomato plants right here. You see, this was the main stalk coming up right here. And I cut the main plant off, and I kept the sucker coming up from the bottom. And now I'm just using that as my main tomato plant. So I'm curious to see how it's going to do compared to the ones that are continuing to grow. Oh, here's more suckers right here on these tomato plants. And they've come out, that's a new growth on these tomatoes, and I'll probably keep those too. One thought that a farmer told me is that by keeping all of this foliage on here, and it's coming all the way up from the bottom of the ground, that it has to suck its nutrients all the way through this vine, all the way up, and then all the way down to the tomatoes. And he didn't feel like that it would be a good thing to keep these tomato plants growing. Well, you know, they're hardly taking up any room because it's just one stalk coming up. It's all the foliage isn't down low, so I can plant in between the tomato plants, so I don't feel like it's taking up space in my garden. And I had blooms, I had little tomatoes, so I thought, well, why not? Let's just see. So I haven't had to come out here and plant tomato plants, and as you can see on the footage, we have lots of tomatoes coming, so I'm very pleased with how it's going so far. I know this isn't a tomato plant. Remember the okra on the other row that's all leaning everywhere? Well, on this row, we have it done up for tomato plants, to string up tomato plants on the little, I can't remember what you call them, the little strings. But anyway, so Tommy had the idea, why not hook them to the strings? And so that's what he's done on most all the okra. Some of it don't have a string. But anyway, so it's keeping all these okras was leaning over in the row and everything too. So I'm very pleased with how this keeps it up out of the row. Well, thank you so much for joining our garden tour. If you'd like to see more, hop on over to Homesteaders of America. And everybody is uploading their garden tours today, and check out what other people are doing. We're down south, so we're doing things a lot different right now than people up north are doing. So anyway, but thank you for joining us, and thank you to the Homesteaders of America for including us in this collaboration.